Picture the year 1219. A vast empire is on the move, its armies stretching across the steppe like a dark tide rolling toward everything humanity had built. The Mongols under Genghis Khan were not merely conquerors, they were the most terrifyingly efficient killing machine the ancient world had ever seen. And what they left behind was not just conquered land. It was silence, ash, and mass graves so enormous that historians still argue about how many millions of people vanished from the earth because of them. This is the story of the Mongol conquests and the human cost that most history books rush past. Genghis Khan unified the Mongol tribes around 1206, and almost immediately the campaigns of destruction began. His strategy was deliberate and calculated. Before attacking a city, Mongol envoys would arrive and offer a simple choice: surrender completely or face total annihilation. No negotiation, no middle ground. Cities that surrendered were spared, though they still lost their wealth, their freedom, and often their men of fighting age. But cities that resisted, they were made into examples so horrifying that neighboring kingdoms would surrender without a single arrow being fired. The siege of Zhongdu in northern China, the capital of the Jin dynasty, in 1215 was one of the first catastrophic demonstrations of Mongol power. The city had resisted. When the Mongols finally broke through, the slaughter was so massive and so concentrated that travelers passing through the region months later reported that the ground was still white with bones and that fat from decomposing bodies had mixed with the soil, making the earth slippery underfoot. Zhongdu had been one of the most populated cities in the world. After the Mongols were done, it was barely a memory. But it was the campaign against the Khwarazmian Empire stretching across modern-day Iran, Afghanistan, and Central Asia that truly revealed the apocalyptic scale of what the Mongols were capable of. When the Shah of Khwarezm made the catastrophic mistake of executing Mongol trade envoys and then insulting Genghis Khan personally, he sealed the fate of an entire civilization. The Mongols crossed the Syr Darya River in 1219 and began what historians now call one of the greatest demographic catastrophes in human history. Samarkand, one of the most beautiful and prosperous cities in the world at the time, fell after a brief siege. The population was ordered to leave the city and assemble in the plains outside. The craftsmen and artisans were selected out. The Mongols had a pragmatic respect for skilled workers. The soldiers among the defenders were executed. And then the rest, the civilians, the merchants, the scholars, the farmers who had fled there for safety, they were divided among the Mongol warriors as slaves or simply massacred. Contemporary Persian chronicles describe scenes of such overwhelming horror that the writers themselves seem to struggle to find words. One account describes rivers running red for days. Another says that the smell of death could be detected from a day's ride away. Urgench, the capital of Khwarezm, fought back fiercely. The Mongols had to take it street by street in brutal urban combat that cost them more than they were used to. When it finally fell, they were furious. They diverted the Amu Darya River to flood and completely obliterate the city. The engineers, the architects, the scholars who had made Urgench one of the intellectual capitals of the medieval Islamic world, all of it drowned or put to the sword. Population estimates for Urgench before the conquest run as high as several 100,000. After the Mongols finished, it ceased to exist as a functioning settlement for generations. The city of Merv, in what is now Turkmenistan, suffered perhaps the most meticulously documented atrocity of the entire campaign. After it surrendered in 1221, the Mongols ordered every resident to file out of the city under the supervision of soldiers. For days, the population streamed out. Then, the killing began. Each Mongol soldier was reportedly assigned a quota of people to execute. The Persian historian Ibn al-Athir, who lived through this era, wrote that he could hardly bring himself to record what happened, describing it as a calamity unlike any the world had seen. Modern estimates for the death toll at Merv alone range from several 100,000 to over 1 million people. The number is so staggering it barely registers, but try to hold it for a moment. An entire city, an entire population, gone in days. And this was just the beginning. Genghis Khan died in 1227, but his sons and grandsons carried on with the same ruthless methodology. His son Ögedei pushed deep into Europe, shattering Polish and Hungarian armies at the battles of Legnica and Mohi in 1241 with such overwhelming force that Western Europe trembled. Reports flooded into the courts of France, England, and the Holy Roman Empire, describing the Mongols as demons, as a punishment from God, as an army that left nothing alive behind them. Pope Innocent IV convened councils to discuss how to respond to what many Europeans genuinely believed was the end of the world. But it was the fall of Baghdad in 1258 that stands as perhaps the single most catastrophic moment of the entire Mongol era. Baghdad was not merely a city. It was the capital of the Abbasid Caliphate, the political and spiritual heart of the Sunni Muslim world, and one of the greatest centers of learning, medicine, philosophy, and science that human civilization had ever produced. The House of Wisdom, which had preserved and expanded upon the knowledge of ancient Greece, Persia, and India for centuries, stood there. Libraries containing hundreds of thousands of manuscripts lined its streets. Hulagu Khan, grandson of Genghis, laid siege to Baghdad with an army that included not just Mongols, but Persians, Armenians, and Georgian Christians who had their own complicated grievances against the caliphate. The Caliph al-Mustasim refused to surrender and stalled for time, perhaps believing that reinforcements would come, or perhaps simply unable to comprehend what was about to happen. The city fell on the 10th of February 1258. What followed was a week of slaughter and destruction that broke something in the Islamic world that never fully healed. The caliph was executed, reportedly wrapped in felt and trampled by horses so that his royal blood would not touch the ground, since the Mongols believed spilling royal blood directly was a terrible omen. His family was killed, his officials were killed, and the population of Baghdad, one of the largest cities on earth at the time, was massacred in numbers that contemporary sources put between 200,000 and 800,000 people. The libraries were burned. The books were thrown into the Tigris River in such quantities that the water reportedly ran black with ink for days. Centuries of accumulated human knowledge, medical texts, astronomical tables, works of philosophy, poetry, history gone. Scholars who study the intellectual history of the Islamic world argue that the destruction of Baghdad set back scientific and philosophical development by centuries. The city that had once been a beacon of human progress was left a ruin populated only by the dead. What makes the Mongol conquest so difficult to fully absorb is their sheer scale. Demographic historians estimate that the total death toll from the Mongol conquests across all of Asia and Eastern Europe ranged from 30 million to as many as 40 million people at a time when the total world population was only around 400 million. In some regions, particularly Iran and Iraq, population levels did not recover to pre-Mongol numbers until the 20th century. In parts of Central Asia, the irrigation systems that had made agriculture possible for thousands of years were destroyed so thoroughly that the land reverted to desert and has never fully recovered. The Mongols did not just kill people. In some places, they effectively ended civilizations.